decided that he could fill in for me and help me out while we were gone. And I got some good rest. I needed that. I didn't realize how much I needed that until I was sitting there having to take rest. It's hard when it seems like you're constantly going. But while I was there, and we'll segue right here into the message. While I was there, I watched a movie, and it's one of my brother and I's favorites. It's called Four Christmases, except they've changed it to something weird now. I don't know if they didn't like Four Christmases or what it is, but anyways, it's called Four Christmases, and it's about a bunch of selfish people, and these two selfish adults. They're considering getting married. And they basically have been living the lifestyle where they don't commit to anything. They just kind of together, and they've decided they have beaten Christmas. They've told their loved ones that they're going to go off and serve and mission work over the holiday season, but really they're going to Fiji and they're going to just have vacation, and that way they don't have to deal with any of the holiday things. And wouldn't you know it, flights get canceled, and now their family knows that they lied to them. So they've got to go to all four families in one day. And when you get to see the families, you find out that the families are just as selfish as they are. Yeah. And these families, they all have their own agendas. They all have their own hurts and things that have happened to them. They all are pursuing other things. And these two messed up people you see that they came from messed up families, and that their responses as people are because of the families that they've came out of. And what's interesting, and this is what I told my brother, the interesting part of the whole movie is the one seemingly normal person in the movie, her dad, they spend the least amount of time on. Now, isn't that interesting? They want to show us the people that are selfish, almost as if we like a mirror of ourselves, because we understand these people, but we don't understand non-selfish people like her dad. That should be scary to us. As Christians, that should be scary to us. That the mirror of society that this cinema movie is holding up to us is that you are a selfish person and you relate to these people that are selfish people. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Unfortunately, many of our holidays look the same. Many of our holidays look the same. Let me read you some statistics. I was looking up some statistics on this. It says 89% of people feel overwhelmed in the holiday season. That's the big one on top. 89%. Okay? And then it says the 49% would describe their stress levels between the months of November and January as moderate, but 41% says that it increases. 43% said that the stress of holidays interferes with their ability to enjoy them, and 36% said that the holidays feel like a competition. 58% of adults say they spend way too much or not having enough money during the holiday season causes them stress. 40% say that their stress is from finding the right gifts, and 38% says their stress comes from missing family or loved ones. And then the other one is that we don't have enough money. They said that the people making under $50,000 in their households versus the people making $100,000 in their households, there was stress for competition and keeping up with the Joneses. The holidays are a stressful time. And what's great about the holiday season is you get a precursor to it called Thanksgiving that we just got out of. And Thanksgiving is usually a precursor to the big Christmas meal. So if you didn't do well during Thanksgiving, let me spoil the movie for you. You're probably not going to do well during Christmas. Okay? That's why we're doing this message. We're going to try to find out how we can do family stress better by getting rid of the strife that's in our lives. Okay? All right. Is this ringing any bells here? Did anybody else have sometimes their family gets a little thing? Me and my brother, we get along well. We talk to each other every day. But you know what? Being under his household, with his, how he deals with things, it's different from how I deal with things. They like lives that are busy and going and constantly, they've got 100 different irons in the fire, and they're constantly, calling this person or looking up this for something they need for next 2 weeks from now. And they just live this life of just constantly juggling all the different balls that are in the air. I'm a much simpler person. I take things as they come. That life is foreign to me, and it makes me uncomfortable. And I have to stop myself from saying stupid things. Sometimes it doesn't work. I wish it did. Sometimes it just slips right out. But we as a family can have grace for each other. I worked really hard this time to try to, just be able to be in the moment and just let things happen as they do. Because they have a life that they built. And they were gracious enough to invite me to come down and be with them. But it's hard, because that's what the holidays point out, is that strife is one of the first thing to come. You've got all these different people who live all these different lives coming together under one roof to share a meal. And in some families, that's not just a meal, it's a day. And all these different ideologies and things that we hold sacred and things that mean something to one person and don't, they start to grate. They start to grate. And it produces conflict, strife. So one of the first causes of strife is pride. Little Sally gets home from college. She's heard all these great ideas, all these ideas that seemingly could change the world if they were implemented. But Mom, Dad, Uncle Fred, they've lived in the real world, and they realize that Uncle Sally or Little Sally's ideals are for an idealized world, and it makes Sally angry. Because she wants to see these things that we talked about in class. And she thinks, just like many of the colleges think, that everything, it happens in a vacuum. That nothing affects other things. And ideologies clash. But Sally's proud. She's went to school. She's worked hard to get the grades that she's earned. She wants to tell them. The father, Jack, he worked hard to put this meal on the table. He works hard every day in a job he hates to put this meal on the table. And he's proud of the fact that he can do that for his family, that he makes that sacrifice. But he has trouble seeing little Sally's point of view, and she's so loud. And I worked so many hours of overtime just to provide this meal that's on your table. And now you're telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm an ignorant clod? It clashes. Cousin Freddie, who has no responsibilities, lives aloof, lives in the broke down trailer just down the way, has never mowed a lawn in his life. He comes. He's been watching CNN and all these different things, coming up with all these political ideologies, has no idea what any of it really means, but they told him to tell it, and he wants to make sure you hear about it because he wants to offer something of value in your holiday celebration. As loud as he possibly can. All these things meeting together under one roof, but they're proud. We talk about this in Proverbs 13:10. The wisest man in the world, Solomon, talks about what happens with pride. It says pride leads to conflict. There you go, right there, right off the bat. We have the wisest man in the world telling us that our pride will lead to conflict. But those who take advice are wise. Those who can put aside their pride and listen are wise. In Proverbs 16:18, we have pride goes before destruction and haughtiness before a fall. Solomon doubles down. He says that your pride will lead to your destruction. And it may not be the destruction of your person, but it might be the destruction of your family. And haughtiness, or that feeling of always being right, will lead to a fall. The Bible warns us about that. It lets us know that these are things that are not good in the people of God. Do you get that? They're not good in the people of God. And that's why it takes this time to warn us that our pride could lead to some very negative consequences. It's hard going to meals. You've stepped out of your own little world that you have at your home, and you step back in to a world. And there may be mixed perceptions. Dad may still see you as the little 10-year-old girl that you once were. You might see them as that bossy parent that was always trying to tell you what to do. We're back in places that have perceptions. They have different ideas. And it's sometimes hard to admit because of a fear of things changing, a fear of change. And therefore, these things are going to clash. The opposite of pride, a humble spirit, says, allow me to meet you where you are. And that's what we're called to have, is that in humility, we're allowed to meet people where they are and hear them as they're talking to us, without all the presuppositions, without all the things that we want to bring into the past arguments and water under the bridge, so to speak, and just be with them as a humble person, talking person to person, not doctor to laborer, not banker to the poor person, but just person to person. So pride's the first thing that we're called to crucify with Jesus on the cross. Because without him, we have no hope. Do you understand that? Until we get rid of our pride, understanding that we couldn't even save ourselves, we couldn't even be good enough to come into God's kingdom on our own, that we had to rely on Jesus Christ to give us any hope in this world whatsoever. We will never go beyond the place that we are. Pride is the first. When you get rid of pride, when you crucify pride, it opens the door to being able to relate not just to God, but also to people. It's where you say, I'm not above you, I'm just sitting here beside you. All right, let's move on. Envy. Envy is the next thing, and it's like the kissing cousin of pride. Envy says, I am jealous of the things that you have, and so what does envy lead to? It leads to acting out. I've got to prove that I'm just as good as you. That's envy coming out. I've got to prove that I'm just as good as you. You may have all these fancy things, but I'm just as good as you. And let me tell you, those are two of the biggest things that come out at Christmas time. and Thanksgiving time. Cousin Fred feels bad that all he could do was bring sodas. And meanwhile, there's all these great looking dishes. But Cousin Fred was only asked to bring sodas because that was what was determined was his capabilities. And so now he's acting out because he's jealous that other people are better at the dinner thing than what he is. Envy. And you may not know it's envy. It comes out in a variety of ways. It was hard for me to be at my brother's house and see all the beautiful things that they had put together. I am not a decorator. Don't come into my home. Miss Fern had the opportunity to be in my home this week because of a bad-looking the toilet that wouldn't cooperate, and so she was gracious enough to go and turn my water off for me. I'm not a decorator. It looks just about the same as when John and his wife were there because I don't decorate. But I go to my brother's house, and Dawn has it looking so pretty. Everything's in its place. I don't feel comfortable because, if you hit something, now you've wrecked a motif, and it's very hard. I'm not used to that environment. I'm used to, just a couch that I can sit on, and I don't have to worry about coasters and things that civilized people use. I bought my table that I set my drinks on for $25. I'm not worried about a ring on my table. That's not important to me. So I forget. And so at least twice, Dawn had to hand me a coaster. It's embarrassing. My little $25 table doesn't compare to her $300 family heirloom type table. It's probably not $300, it's probably more, but as you can see, I didn't go shopping for that type of thing, so I don't understand where that comes in. I have a table I don't care about. If it gets broke, I'll go buy another $25 table. She cares about her tables. I think it was passed down from her dad and mom to her. She cares about her tables. That's a different world than I'm used to. And it's hard sometimes not to have envy when you see so much. That's okay. Just enjoy the place that you are. James 4:1-3 says, "What is causing the quarrels and fights with you? Don't you come from the evil? Don't they come from the evil desires that war within you? You want what you don't have, so you scheme and you kill to get it. You're jealous of what others have, but you can't have it, so you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what gives you pleasure." James recognized this. The things that we're envious of are the things that give us pleasure. Nobody's envious of their neighbor's liver and onions. All right? Nobody's envious of that. Now, if you have a really nice porterhouse steak, I would be envious of that. And that might be, if I was a lesser man, I might be willing to go to war over that, is what James is saying here. Or to cause strife. Cousin Eddie, who's just had beans all week, comes to this house and there's more food on this table than he's ever seen. He's a little envious. Okay? Strife. So strife starts. James tells us that we have not because we don't ask correctly to God. That we don't prepare ourselves as God has called us to. That there's no reason to be envious of what others have, because if we needed it, the Father would provide for us. You're not called to live like Cousin Eddie. You're not called to get jealous when you see someone doing better than you. These are hard words. Let's keep going. Greed. Greed is the third cause of strife. And now I have heard this numerous times, where sometimes people go to family dinners just out of greed and strife, and to cause strife. Grandma's getting older. We want to make sure we're included in the will. So where are we going to be? Right there in Grandma's eyesight. So their sole goal is to be seen by someone who has money, or to ask somebody for money so they can make sure they show up at your family dinner. You know who else does that? Children. You know why they tolerate going to family dinners? Because or especially Christmas, because there's presents at the end. Whole reason they want to go. And yet there's adults that will do the exact same thing. We don't like to think that. We like to think we grew up. We don't. Sometimes we can act like children. And that our whole goal for going somewhere is so that we can get something from it. James again speaks on this in James 5. He says, "Look here, you rich people, weep and groan with anguish because of all the terrible troubles ahead of you. Your wealth is rotting away, and your fine clothes are moth-eaten rags. Your gold and silver are corroded. I'm going to have to read from up here because my thing cut it off. Your gold and silver, the very wealth that you were counting on will eat away your flesh like fire. This corroded treasure you have hoarded will testify against you on the day of judgment." Those are hard words. A godly person shares wealth, especially with his family. Maybe not to the point of buying them everything that they need, but making sure, or buying everything they want, but making sure they have some of the things that they need. We have some family members that weren't doing as well as what we did in past. And so a lot of times my parents would give away money at holiday times just to help to ease that load. Even though we didn't have a lot according to the world standards, we wanted to make sure we could help those that we could. That's the way we're called to. That's the difference between people who say they're Christians and people who are Christians. They see others as a mission field. Their things don't mean as much to them as they do to the average person. And we're called to be able to do that, to help lighten loads where we can. And we're not called to buy the Maseratis or those type things. But, we help out where we can. We are called to do that in our Christian abilities, where we can help. That's an uncomfortable truth. Because sometimes you feel like you worked so hard for something and you don't feel like they have. I'm not here to condemn anybody, but I am say search your heart as a Christian and as a child of God, and look to where you can help people, especially in this holiday season. Let's keep going. And the last one, and probably the granddaddy of all these, is exactly what we started out by saying, is selfishness. I want my way. Hardest thing about being in for someone else's house is I want my way. I live my life a certain way, and now you're asking me to completely change to live in your house. And it's so apparent. That's why so many people like to break up their holidays. They only want to spend a couple hours at each place, is because they want to move through it. They're just checking boxes because my time is valuable. I love as I read the story of Jesus, and it doesn't show that Jesus had a selfish bone in his body. He didn't need all the acclaim. He didn't need all the other stuff. But he spent time with each person as if they were the only person. And even when he couldn't particularly spend time, I'm thinking of Zacchaeus. He told Zacchaeus, he said, come on down. I'm going to come to your house later and we can just talk. He wasn't selfish. Jesus modeled how our life it should be. The ability to give of ourselves and not expect anything in return. Luke 14, 8 through 11 says, when you are invited to a wedding feast, don't sit at the seat of honor. Because if someone who is more distinguished than you has been invited, the host will come and say, give this person your seat. Then you will be embarrassed and you will have to take whatever seat is left at the foot of the table. Boy, I'm important. I deserve the best seat in the house. So they come up and they sit where the family or the close family is supposed to sit. And the host has to come and say, hey, listen, mom or my best man is going to sit there or whatever. Could you please find another seat? And he says, so Jesus says, now you're going to be at the end of the table. And Jesus didn't just randomly say this. I didn't include this verse in there, but it says he was at a very nice feast, and they were all fighting. All the Pharisees were fighting for the best seat in the house. They were all wanting to be up near the guest of honor. And Jesus is watching all this, and that's what he says this. And he says, instead, take the lowest place at the foot of the table. Then when your host sees you, he will come and say, friend, we have a better place for you. Then you'll be honored in front of all the other guests. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Get rid of selfishness out of our lives. Get rid of selfishness out of our Thanksgiving. Get rid of selfishness out of our Christmas. Neither one of these days are meant that. Thanksgiving is modeled after our communion supper. Is that we're coming together in a meal of thankfulness for all the things that have been in the past. Christmas is a celebration of our only hope coming into the world. And yet both of those meetings seem to get lost in the middle of all that's going on. In the middle of the Aunt Cindy's dessert and Uncle Fred's turkey and all these different things that have to come together to make this meal. The two meanings can get so lost. Remember that both of these holidays, both Thanksgiving and Christmas, Thanksgiving being past and Christmas before us, our time of unselfishness, our time when we're supposed to be giving of ourselves to the betterment of others. If we really want to reflect Jesus to the people around us, if we want to witness to what should be the most important people that are in our lives, we have to remember that these things are very possibly sitting at the table around us. As our worship team comes up, I want to end with this scripture, and next week we're going to talk about solutions to all four of these things, all four of these problems. But I want to end with this scripture. It says in Luke 14, 8 through 11, he said, no, wrong. In Philippians 4:8. He says, and now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you've learned and received from me, everything you've heard from me and saw me doing, and the God of peace will be with you. As Thanksgiving was our practice, as Christmas is coming up, think about this verse. take into consideration this verse. That we're called to be a people of peace. It doesn't say that just let that these things will happen. It says fix. Remember we talked before I left on the term focus. Focus, or fixing your gaze upon these things, Paul says. Fix your eyes upon these things. Whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good report, all these different things. It says that should be your intentional, fixed gaze. And then we'll show forth Christ. Let's sing with our worship team and contemplate.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm singing this song as a declaration